And we're live.
We're live.
Okay, welcome back, council colleagues, and welcome to the public to our council meeting number 16, Tuesday, March 16th at 6:30 p.m. on the eve of St. Patrick's Day. And obviously some are more keen to celebrate than others. Thank you for your spirited participation this evening, your attire, etc. Nice to see you all decked out in green. I have some St. Patrick's Day glasses, but I couldn't see out of them, so I'll spare you. Anyway, council colleagues, you'll recall that we have already adopted an agenda. I am recognizing that after our delegation and our consent agenda, we are going to move up the Parks and Rec item in recognition of some time constraints that Councillor O'Sullivan has this evening. But at this point, I'll just ask for we've done disclosure of interest. So at this point, I'm going to invite our one delegation this evening. We did have a second, and that was Ethan Boss, who has appealed to council every year to support Green Shirt Day. He was all geared up this evening to come back to council. Many of us have the shirts. And unfortunately, owing to some rural broadband challenges, Ethan isn't able to present today. But nonetheless, we will obviously entertain a recommendation, Heather, that council proclaim April 7th, 2021 as Green Shirt Day. So before we hear from our other delegation, I'll look to a council colleague to move that motion, please. Thank you, Councillor Strachan and Deputy Mayor. Thank you. And here is my shirt as well. So I'll put it on after we've done this. And I know there's a photo for April 7th that we're all prepping to participate in. So the motion is on the table. And of course, Green Shirt Day is something that council has welcomed the opportunity to recognize in the past. So thank you to our mover and seconder. Ms. Babcock-Cormier, is there anything you'd like to add about Green Shirt Day? Obviously, we've done it in the past. Are there any other considerations for tonight's motion?
There's no other considerations, Your Worship, but Ethan will be presenting in the next council meeting.
He will. Okay, so he'll come to us. That being said, because the day is April 7th, I think it was our intention to at least pass this motion this evening, because I don't think we'll be meeting before April 7th. Okay. Council colleagues, anything that anyone wants to say about Green Shirt Day? Seeing none? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Good, thank you. So, Mr. Boss, we look forward to seeing you at our next council meeting, and thank you, as always, for bringing this important day to our attention. It's really appreciated, and we are very grateful for your leadership and dedication. So thank you very much. And we now have Green Shirt Day. So the next delegation this evening is from Mom Stop the Harm. And we have Christine Wingate with us this evening, who will be doing a short presentation on Mom Stops the Harm. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. If you can move to the second slide, that would be, thank you. My name is Christine Wingate, and I have been directly touched by the opioid crisis. I lost my youngest son, Shane, on March 4th, 2018, at the young age of 29 to a carfentanil drug poisoning. According to the toxicology report, my son had over 5 times a lethal dose in his system. Shane struggled with severe anxiety and depression and sadly self-medicated to overcome his fears. His journey with substance use lasted several years, but he always put his best foot forward to overcome his fears and his substance use. I was his strongest advocate to try and navigate the medical system's bureaucratic maze and long wait periods. Sadly, he lost the battle, but to his family, he was a hero trying to fight the demons of addiction to opioids. Shane had so much compassion, kindness, and love towards his family. He's deeply missed by his father, stepfather, 4 siblings, and 9 nieces and nephews. The bond that my son and I shared was a special one. It was a rare gift held deep within both our hearts. What gave Shane hope was that I never gave up on him. My son, like so many others, had dreams to fulfill, places to see. They had their whole life ahead of them. I am one of many grieving mothers across Canada, in Ontario, that is mourning the loss of a loved one. Sadly, since Shane's death, there have been many more loved ones that have died. Next slide, please. According to, I'd like to go back to collectively, we have to do better. We all need to do better. Next slide. According to the Ontario Public Health, in 2020, the estimated preliminary death trends from January 20 to September 2020, the number of deaths is 1,676, only in the first 9 months. According to the Office of the Chief Coroner, effective March 1st, there are 2,167 opioid-related deaths, confirmed and probable, that were reported to date from January to November 2020. This represents a 59% increase over the same time period in 2019, where there were 1,367 deaths. In November 2020, the highest reported month to date, there were 240 deaths that occurred. The overdose crisis continues to be one of the most devastating public health emergencies of our lifetime, with an estimated 20,000 deaths in the last 5 years alone. Most of these deaths were preventable deaths. Too many of them were our children. An increasing number of municipalities across Canada have passed a Mum Stop the Harm resolution calling on the federal government to develop a pan-Canadian overdose action plan that gives full consideration to decriminalization and legal regulation of drugs. We are hoping that you will consider our request and pass our resolution or part of our resolution, as it's time for the federal government to do much more. I strongly believe that we need more support for our loved ones and compassion and understanding and good treatment options for people who use substances. Substance use disorder needs to be treated as a medical issue and not a criminal one. A safer regulated drug supply should be available for those who use substances or have a substance use disorder, and when they are ready, effective streamlined pathways to treatment. We need more wellness centers for those with concurrent substance use and or mental health disorders. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed so much and has brought other inadequacies and inefficiencies to light. Yet given the heartbreaking number of overdoses in the last year all across the country, the political will to make the necessary changes to stop the overdose crisis still continues to move at a snail's pace. Mum Stop the Harm is a network of Canadian families impacted by substance use related harms and deaths. We advocate to change failed drug policies and provide peer support to grieving families and those with loved ones who use or have used substances. Our mission is to end substance use related stigma, harms, and death. Our vision calls for an end to the failed war on drugs through evidence-based prevention, treatment, and policy change. We support a harm reduction approach that is both compassionate and non-discriminatory for people who use substances. Because of stigma, people use and sadly die alone. They don't reach out for help. Structural stigma is created by laws and policies. Criminalization of drug use and exposure to illicit opioid supply contaminated by fentanyl and its analogs are the major drivers of the current crisis. The next page, please. For decriminalization, it's for small amounts of drugs for personal use. As Dr. Teresa Tam said, you cannot arrest your way out of an opioid crisis. Sadly, marginalized people are disproportionately impacted by a criminal response to substance use. Many public health officers support decrim, and in a recent public opinion poll, the majority of Canadians are in favor of this move. It is the strongest sign that society can send about addiction being an illness rather than a crime. Next slide. Harm reduction and safer supply. It's to provide pharmaceutical grade medication as an alternative to the toxic illegal supply in circulation to keep people alive and as healthy as possible. It's to connect people with social and health services and or treatment. This would reduce the need to access emergency services and save enormous healthcare costs. It encourages self-respect and offers hope. The next slide. And the final slide. Your Worship, Mayor Peckford and Deputy Mayor and Council members, I ask that you support our resolution so that we may urge the federal government to declare the overdose crisis a national public health emergency and to immediately collaborate with provinces and territories to develop a comprehensive pan-Canadian action plan to deal with this crisis. We need to change the failed drug policies so our loved ones don't continue to die. I would like to thank all of you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Christine. Obviously a very moving presentation and one that hits close to home. I'm curious if you've seen a particular province demonstrate leadership when it comes to a prevention strategy. Are there lessons learned? I'm not quite sure how North Grenville landed on your radar screen, or if you could give us a little bit of context, that would be helpful. But have you seen the province of Ontario or another province in Canada that has acted more proactively than others?
I've got a few lists that just basically followed up with our resolution. The Elizabethtown Kittley Mayor Burrows sent to the Minister of Health and to our local MP, Michael Barrett. Michael Barrett on February 4th submitted a petition that I had given to him in the House of, he submitted in the House of Commons and read my petition on behalf of my late son. In Ontario, there's Halton Hills, Cobourg, Thistleton, Killaloe, Brantford, and Mallorytown that have passed some, all of the resolution and some part of our resolution. British Columbia is at the forefront, given the per capita number of deaths. In Ontario, we've just recently started a advocacy group in Mom Stop the Harm to reach out to our allies and to various organizations to try and move this agenda forward. There's been lots in the last several years that have changed, especially since my son passed away, but more needs to be done. The deaths are still there, as you can see, and sadly, the numbers keep rising.
Okay, thank you. And certainly we're hearing that from our local paramedic community as well. Colleagues, any questions for Christine? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just a comment, Christine. Thank you for coming towards in front of us. This is excellent. And sorry for your loss. That's a pretty traumatic thing for any of us parents to have to lose a child, for sure. It has affected our family. My sister actually got hooked on the drug pretty severely, and anyways, but luckily she got help in time and got out of it. But she's a big promoter of trying to, she's in the States now, but trying to, you know, help families and educate people on this exact subject of these opioids. Are extremely addictive, terrible drug. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's really important that we emphasize it really can happen to anyone, right? So it doesn't discriminate. There's no doubt about that. Okay, so council colleagues, I do have a motion that the clerk's office has prepared, and I'll just read it to you. And that is that North Grenville's Municipal Council urges the Government of Canada to declare the overdose crisis a national public health emergency so that it is taken seriously and funded appropriately, and to meet with the provinces to immediately develop a comprehensive pan-Canadian overdose action plan. Deputy Mayor, would you like to move that? And Councillor Sullivan, your second? Thank you. Okay, any further comments? Any other observations, Christine, you'd like to make? Do you have a goal for the number of municipal councils that in fact adopt this resolution?
Yes, I've reached out to about 13 mayors. I live in Portland,
Okay.
just outside. And I had a long conversation with MP Michael Barrett, and stressed that I was going to be reaching out to mayors to get support. And he was very supportive, and is hoping down the road when there's committees and that in the House that I can participate in some of them.
Yeah, I think
I'm on the board of, yes, I'm on the board of directors for Mum Stop the Harm. After Shane passed away, I reached out to them and decided that I would advocate to try and educate, bring about change, and help other families so they don't have to go through what our family has been through. It's a rippling effect. It's from the 4-year-old grandchild that still remembers him and is deeply affected. And it does touches mums, sons, daughters, so many from all walks of life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think every council colleague and myself, we all have sons, so each and every one of us. So it is a devastating loss, and we are so sorry. And we appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and we're happy to work with Michael to give him a boost. And I think a parliamentary study around this would be immensely valuable. So hopefully that can begin at some point in the near future. So thank you again. Council colleagues, I'll call the question unless there is any other comment. Seeing none, all in favor, please. Good, thank you. Christine, your work is done here. Thank you very much. And thank you for obviously honoring your son's tremendous legacy through this work.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
I should just leave. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, colleagues, obviously I'm very grateful to Christine for bringing that forward. Next, we have our consent agenda. Of course, this is a new format for council whereby certain items are proposed for the consent agenda. So these items are considered routine and no longer require further discussion, and as a consequence are enacted in one motion. The exception, of course, is that a member may request that one or more items be pulled for discussion and voted on separately. The following consent agenda items are presented to you for approval: minutes of a previous meeting, reports on emergency protective services, regulation of private transportation companies. That's the culmination of previous discussions. The informational reports include the annual Integrity Commissioner report, as well as the annual Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act report. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconder, please. Okay. Are we comfortable with the consent agenda as presented, colleagues? Good. I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to minutes of previous meeting, and this is that the minutes of the following meeting be approved as circulated, and that's the March 2nd council meeting minutes. Colleagues, comments or concerns about those minutes?
That was in the consent agenda, so I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. You were absolutely right. I apologize. I thought they were separate for some reason, but they aren't. Thank you. Okay, so then, in fact, we will move on to the broadband study, and that is a recommendation coming from Mr. Dyke's office. Mr. Dyke, would you like to speak to this, please?
Yes, we can. Did we not amend it? Process was, did we amend the agenda to move one item forward?
Oh, I apologize. Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you. As you know, it's been a very long day, so I appreciate the cue. So I think we're going to move up to Parks and Rec in recognition that Councillor Sullivan soon has to go. So I'm not sure who I'm inviting to speak from Parks and Rec to speak to our mower.
That would be Joe, Your Worship.
Okay, welcome, Joe.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. The report before you is to obtain authorization from Council to award contract PRC 2101 to Top Line Trailers for the supply of tractor with attachments. The municipality issued the request for tender in accordance with municipality's purchasing and procurement policy. The tender was issued on February 12th, 2021 and closed on March 1st, 2021. The RFT was sent to 3 local vendors and advertised on the municipal website. The advertisement generated 6 additional requests for the tender package. The tender submissions, 2 tender submissions were received. One of the tender submission was not compliant. Since 2012, the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department has operated a Jacobson large area mower as part of its grass cutting fleet. This unit has been an invaluable piece of equipment during the summer months. However, it is limited to cutting grass. As the unit is aged, it has begun to be very unreliable, causing several breakdowns annually. These breakdowns have happened during the department's peak grass cutting seasons, causing downtime for repairs and part sourcing. The department has acquired additional year-round recreational park amenities over the last few years and demand additional maintenance and operational tasks beyond grass cutting. As stated, the Jacobson is limited to cutting grass, and the department is at the point where it needs to expand its fleet to meet operational objectives. Historically, the Jacobson is heavily operated for 3 months of the year and sits dormant for the remainder of the year. The Parks Division has an innovative way to expand our fleet and enhance our maintenance programs with a more versatile piece of equipment that can be used for year-round park maintenance and operations. The tendered tractor has several attachments, including a 14-foot finishing mower, a 72-inch power sweeper, an 80-inch trail and parking lot grade scrape, and an 82-inch rotary tiller. The proposed new piece of equipment will maintain the grass cutting requirements of the previous Jacobson and build upon additional maintenance programs not limited to enhanced turf maintenance, trail maintenance, play structure maintenance, and the outdoor rink program. This piece of equipment will be invaluable to the growth and enhanced capacity of the Parks Division. The bid provided by Top Line Trailers is competitive and in line with the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department's expectation. The purchase of the tractor with attachment is extremely important for the Parks Division, as it will be invaluable to the day-to-day operations. The pandemic has shed light on several gaps in the Parks Division fleet, and this procurement will help close the gap. The Parks Division has been extremely busy throughout the pandemic, providing additional services that previously were not provided pre-pandemic. The Parks and Recreation Culture Department recommends that the tender PRC 21 tractor with attachments for the total cost of $101,714.33, excluding HST, be awarded to Top Line Trailers in full. I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you, Joe. My question would be, what is the lifespan of one of these machines?
15 to 20 years, depending on the hours we put on annually.
Okay. Councillor O'Sullivan, anything you'd like to say on the Parks and Rec side?
Thank you, Joe, for that presentation and preparing that. I do have just one incidental question is, will the Jacobson still be a backup? Will it still be used for any grass cutting, strictly grass?
That's a great question. So we're planning on retaining the Jacobson for the remainder of this year to ensure that this new piece of equipment meets the needs and work out any issues that there may be with this new procurement. And then we'll reevaluate next year to see where we sit.
Okay, thank you. And is Top Line Trailers, is it local or within the county? Yeah.
Just down the road in Winchester.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm prepared to move this
Great,
motion.
thank you. A seconder, please. Okay, thank you. And just Joe, going back to you, so it sounds like there's multi-seasonal versatility to this machine. Is that correct? It has sweeping powers.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is going to be a very versatile piece of equipment. I can go on for hours if you'd like how much this is going to improve, but it's going to be used daily throughout the year. It's going to be a great piece of equipment.
And maintenance wise, I'm curious, we talk about this at the counties a lot. What are the in-house, or is this, what are the in-house maintenance capacities for a machine like this, or do you have to contract that out?
It's a great question. For the first year, warranty work will get done through the dealer just to maintain the warranty. But outside of that, for a new machine like this, it's going to be very limited. It's going to be oil changes and greases for the first 10 years. It'll be very minimal.
Okay. And do you have to train people to use it, or is it a fairly, I mean, I know the machine has lots of different capacities. Does it require training on the part of staff or no?
That's a great question. We have one tractor that is identical to that in our fleet right now. So the transition to this new piece of equipment will be seamless.
Great. Okay. Council colleagues, anything else? We just want Joe's first meeting to be memorable.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. Thanks, Joe. It's your enthusiasm for this piece of equipment is infectious. I'd like to see it as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
Normally,
Yeah, we'll
Joe, we'd be a little tougher on you, but you know, you expressed your excitement about it. Typical guy with a machine, a new machine, it's all shiny, right?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, we've got 15 years to make good use of it, Joe. So I'll call the question. All in favor?
Sorry,
All right.
Your Worship. Sorry to just interject. Who seconded this motion?
Oh, about 3 people.
Could just confirm the name.
I'll take Councillor Strucker again. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you, Joe. And now I know, Councillor Sullivan, you've got a 13th birthday to celebrate. Are you leaving us shortly?
Yes, it has to be by Zoom now because we're all isolating, but, and actually it's for me too. So anyway.
Oh, is it your birthday today?
No, tomorrow.
Oh, your birthday is tomorrow. We forgot. Happy birthday, Councillor Sullivan.
I have the green on, right? Yeah.
That's why I'm wearing that hat.
Yeah, there's my birthday girl.
Wonderful. Okay, so you drop off whenever you need to. And so,
I can stay till 7:30.
okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you. So then we'll go back to the item that we began to speak of, and that was the broadband study, and that's under the Office of the CEO. So Mr. Dyke, carry it away.
Thank you, Worship. Ms. Janot will make the presentation to council tonight.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing this presentation tonight. I'll be talking about a broadband in our community and specifically initiating a broadband study. The need for a better broadband network is apparent in North Grenville and was made even more apparent by the COVID-19 pandemic. In the summer of 2020, Mayor Peckford began meeting with citizens concerned about the local internet situation. She connected several residents who formed a citizen-led committee. The municipality also began offering free access to internet for students in the fall of 2020, as local youth struggled to access coursework during the pandemic. Additionally, the municipality began a campaign in the summer of 2020 to garner information on residents' experiences with internet in the community. A survey was distributed and households were able to take part in speed tests. The results showed that 84% of residents would like increased internet speeds and 64% desire more reliable service. The results of the speed test showed that most households have 0 to 25 megabits per second download speeds and 0 to 7 megabits per second upload speeds. The average speeds were 16.7 and 5.3 megabits per second, and the median speeds were 5.8 and 0.9 megabits per second. This is well below the 50-10 standard set by the CRTC. As we all know, regionally, EORN has been working for a decade on connectivity projects. On March 1st, they made a formal submission to the federal and provincial governments seeking support to deliver ultra-fast gig internet to homes and businesses across the region. This project would use a competitive process to choose a telecommunications partner and maximize coverage across the region. EORN seeks to fund the $1.2 to $1.6 billion project through a combination of funding, including $200 million each from the federal and provincial governments, and the remainder from the Canada Infrastructure Bank and the private sector. In seeking to address residents' concerns, there are a variety of options for next steps that the municipality can take. There are funding opportunities, possible partnerships, and new technologies that the municipality can take advantage of, as detailed further in the report. Staff are recommending initiating a broadband study to better understand our broadband network and evaluate the available options in greater detail. Having a broadband study can also assist in securing funding by providing data on the current network capacity. An RFP can be released immediately, and contingent on the proposals received, a study can be completed over the next several weeks, hopefully by the end of April. That's all I have right now, so thank you for hearing this presentation tonight, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Hillary, very much. I think we determined that 1,300 households had in fact completed the internet speed survey, right?
Yes, that's correct. Just over 1,300.
Okay. And that was obviously part of the, I think, response that the municipality and certainly council wanted to initially provide to at least get a better sense of the landscape here. There's no doubt that almost daily we hear about someone struggling with rural broadband, including, of course, Mr. Ethan Boss, who was going to be with us this evening. So I think there is an imperative to act in a more kind of coherent fashion moving forward, because both provincial and federal governments are creating funding envelopes that may be significant to improving some of the rural broadband here in the municipality of North Grenville. So great to see this come forward, and I'll go to Councillor Barkley for his question or comment.
Yeah, thank you for that report, Hillary. I recall 2 years ago at Roma, I believe it was, that there was a seminar on broadband. Completing that final, what they call the final kilometer, is the most difficult one. But what was interesting about this seminar was the telecommunications company that was hosting it talked about a public-private partnership. So when we take a look at that option, I hope we look at that seriously, because there was some opportunity on a sliding scale, whether it was nothing or considerable, to share some of the revenue in rolling that out and completing that final kilometer. So it certainly caught my attention, and I'm glad to see that it's one of the options that we're considering. I just want to emphasize that it's a public-private partnership with a group like Rock Networks or any other would be something I'd be very interested in finding out details on. So thank you.
Councillor Stracker.
Thank you very much, Hillary. Certainly, I think we've all experienced our own issues with lack of adequate internet connectivity and so on, and especially with more people working from home and studying from home. So very timely to discuss this. I think that certainly seeking out the right opportunities for funding and so on should happen sooner than later. I have a bit of a concern, although I don't know how weighted it'll be in the favor of newer technologies, but Starlink is coming online in our area. And so while we did the broadband tests previously, and I did it, fairly regularly and showed my awful results as best as I could, but as soon as Starlink's available, many people are jumping on board with that. And so the results of a broadband test or what we have available will start to shift, right? It'll start to look perhaps less poor as what it is than what it is today, or even was, 6 months ago before anybody had Starlink. So I don't know how that's going to factor in. Obviously, Starlink isn't affordable for everybody. It is an expensive, especially in the upfront costs endeavor. So I'm just putting this out there. I don't really know that there's a response that I'm seeking from you, but I guess just an observation of something that we could see may happen, and it may have unintended consequences in our ability to seek funding if things look better.
Mm-hmm. And just one thing to note as well, that most of the programmers on this side of things that we've talked to have acknowledged, and even the Canadian government has acknowledged, that even if we go with safe fiber or continue with broadband, the low satellite options are still going to be needed to reach those really hard to reach places. So yeah, I think, and there's pots of funding as well, specifically for low satellite options from the government as well.
Sorry, just to clarify, your last point is there's funding options that would make that more affordable. Is that for at the user end of things or for the technology side of things?
As far as I know, it's for the technology, but I think we'd hope that would trickle down.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barkley, is your hand still up? Yeah, I think your hand was just up.
Sorry, I will take it down.
Okay, so great. I think, what's really, as I think we discussed a couple of weeks ago, council colleagues, we've done a lot of advocacy with the Eastern Ontario Regional Network. There's been some media pieces certainly that I put out there to also kind of create, or I think to demystify how poor internet service can be, even when you live in close proximity to an urban center. And some of the frustrations I'm hearing is just around the corner, someone has really great internet, but they just, the private sector isn't looking to build the line out. They don't see the ROI there. So it's in those areas where, in fact, some infrastructure investments, I think, in partnership with the private sector, and given the availability of federal and provincial funding, is prudent. As you likely recall, we have actually submitted 3 letters of support for 3 different projects that were submitted, that were advanced by internet service providers themselves, because they saw that opportunity to kind of subsidize upgrades where normally they may not be as motivated, for better or for worse. So we'd like to certainly ensure that if we go further than what the internet service providers have self-initiated, we do it in a way that's coherent, and that really, I think, comes to term with, to your point, Councillor Strachan, some of the newer emerging technologies, and where, even those may not be a full, utility to parts, certainly rural parts of North Granville. So there are 3 applications that are in the works in the federal arena now, and we'll see what comes of that. But I think it'll be very useful to get a more technical understanding of some of those hard to reach areas, and where the municipality can be particularly proactive in recruiting a private sector player. And we also want to, obviously keep Eorn's initiative front and center as well, the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, and some of those things might converge over time. The gigabyte project, or gigabit project, as I like to call it, is very, very compelling. And I know Eorn is working closely with the federal and provincial governments to see if they can really unroll something that would go well beyond the municipality of North Granville. And that's often what we hear from our local businesses, that they're looking for reach outside of even North Granville, and they have those same connectivity issues because they're pervasive across Eastern Ontario. So it's great to see this come forward, Ms. Janou, in the way that it is. I see Deputy Mayors who may want to also comment.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor Nancy. Obviously, you're very passionate about this subject and knowledgeable. You've been right from the get-go. Hillary, maybe you could fill in my council colleagues on the recommendation or the idea that CDAC may play a role in this, and what that role might look like to help this project along.
Sure. So the Deputy Mayor has talked to the CDAC committee to discuss whether they'd have an interest in looking into this issue a bit further. So I believe the next steps we've discussed are that I would attend their next meeting, which is April 6th, and give an overview of the topic and get into a discussion on what they see as some of the gaps in the area. At that time, if we proceed with the RFP, it would be probably closed by then. But then hopefully once we get the study up and running, the selected consultant can work with the CDAC committee and then present their final report to them, and it would come back through the committee to council with any recommendations.
Great. Okay. With that in mind, I think I'll look for a mover and a seconder. I don't think I have one for this report. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley. Appreciate that. And the recommendations are, of course, that Council receives the staff report on the broadband study for information, and that we direct staff to initiate the broadband study. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And I want to again thank the CEO and Ms. Janou for your work on this. I think it will bear fruit in the long run. It will take some time, but it is increasingly becoming, and what I've said several months now, it's in the top 3 issues that certainly we hear from, in terms of residents who are absolutely wanting to ensure that they can work from home, learn from home, and play from home. And I don't think even the vaccinations and the the end, if you will, of the pandemic will diminish the need for rural broadband, good, reliable rural broadband. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to 1.2, and that's the COVID-19 Business Support Program. Who's taking this one? Mr. Gilmer? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilmer. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Peckford. So before I begin my report tonight, I'd like to bring to your attention an error in my report, actually. So under financial implications, it says here that the total cost of the 2021 business support programs will be $52,000. That should in fact be $54,000. So the recommendation is correct. It's just I wanted to bring to your attention the error in the actual report, and I apologize for that.
Okay, carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Pollock, are you able to pull up my presentation, my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can. Just one.
Thank you. And next slide, please. Thank you. On April 1st, 2020, Council approved the creation of the COVID-19 Response Reserve in the amount of $960,000 for use to offset unbudgeted expenses experienced by the municipality related to the COVID-19 pandemic. On April 8th, 2020, Council allocated $150,000 of the Response Reserve to be used towards the development of business support programs. The Economic Development Division, as part of the development of the business support programs, created the North Grenville Business Support Group to identify effective support initiatives specifically designed to provide assistance to businesses dealing with COVID-19. The Business Support Group is comprised of the Chamber of Commerce, Old Town Kempville BIA, Grenville CFDC, the Small Business Center, and the North Grenville Business Builders. It was amazing to see how quickly this group came together to collaborate and support the business community. I want to take this opportunity to thank these members for everything they've done over the past year, and I'm looking forward to continuing our efforts in 2021 and beyond. On May 19th, 2020, Council also endorsed the establishment of the Small Business Grant Program as outlined in Staff Report CAO-003-2020 and allocated $100,000 of the COVID-19 Response Reserve to be used to support the grant program. The municipality partnered with the Grenville Community Futures Development Corporation, better known as Grenville CFDC, to offer $1,000 grants to businesses dealing with COVID-19. I'm happy to report that we were able to support over 80 businesses with this particular program. The total budget for the 2020 business support programs was $250,000.
I'm just going to ask, should the slide presentation be moving forward, or did you just have that one slide on background?
Yeah, so that was just the background. Now the next slide will be up right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paula. On June 16th, 2020, Council approved the recommended business support programs as outlined in Staff Report CAO-006-2020 and allocated $95,000 to support these programs. I'll just quickly list off these programs and I'll get into them in more detail later on. Starting out with increased security in the downtown. So we increased the security in the downtown from April to July 2020. We also implemented 2 new COVID-19 websites, including investnorthgrenville.ca/COVID-19 and loveng.ca. We organized a number of business support webinars throughout the year, and we will look to continue these throughout 2021. We developed a co-op ad share program to help businesses cover the cost of their marketing. We implemented several shop local initiatives, including our loveng marketing campaign. We developed a local currency program called NG Green, and we implemented a digital Main Street initiative, which saw us hire 2 digital service squad members to help businesses with their digital needs. I've included a detailed report as part of the agenda package that speaks to the success and lessons learned from the implementation of the 2020 support programs. And Paul, if you could please move to slide 22. Thank you. The actual cost of the 2020 business support programs was $162,000. The remaining $88,000 from the total $250,000 budget will be used to develop the 2021 business support programs. So as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve, the municipality remains committed to helping support local businesses. Staff is recommending that the municipality move forward with the following COVID-19 business support initiatives in 2021. So starting out with the website upgrades, we've budgeted $2,000 to be allocated towards upgrading our loveNG.ca and COVID-19 websites. Upgrades need to be done to the back end of these sites, which will make them more user-friendly and easy to navigate. The website will continue to be maintained and marketing efforts will drive traffic to these websites. Next up, we have business webinars. We've budgeted $2,000 to be allocated towards running business seminars in 2021. The municipality hosted a series of webinars in 2020. The first three covered the following topics: business planning, reopening safely, and available government programs. The plan is to host additional webinars in 2021, and the topics will depend on the current needs of the business community. We will also be looking to partner with streaming companies to make these seminars more interactive and professional. Next slide, please. Next up, we have our NG Green gift certificate program. As you may recall, we launched our new local currency program called NG Green in late 2020. The municipality distributed $9,000 in NG Green in the community through contests and giveaways from September to December 2020. To date, $5,000 has been submitted back to the municipality for reimbursement from a good mix of local businesses. We then made NG Green available for purchase at the municipal center in late December. The NG Green program has been well received by businesses and the community, and we're constantly looking for ways to improve and make it easier for everyone. Many of the businesses have recommended that we move the paper program to a digital platform. This means that we could have our very own NG Green credit card that could be used at participating businesses. This card would work the same as any other debit or credit card and would help cut down on the administrative work for the municipality and businesses. We've done our research and it's actually very common in other communities, and we're excited about the possibility of bringing this to North Grenville. We've allocated $20,000 to move the paper NG program to a digital platform. Next up, we have our digital Main Street. So as you may recall, the municipality received funding through the province to hire 2 digital service squad members to assist businesses with their digital presence. The program launched in September 2020, and I'm happy to announce that we've received funding from both Grenville CFDC and the province to continue this program until June 4th, 2021. The DSS members have helped over 200 businesses to date and will continue to work one-on-one with these businesses to help with their online presence and connect them to available resources. The DSS members have also helped 11 businesses receive a $2,500 digital transformation grant. Next up, we have our Love NG Live. So the municipality has partnered with the BIA, Chamber of Commerce, and Grenville CFDC and Live Stream Junkies to offer a weekly web television show that will be streamed on loveNG.ca. The show will feature 3 or 4 local businesses each week and will tell the stories behind our local entrepreneurs. The show is scheduled to launch on March 22nd at 7 p.m. and will run for 11 weeks. I'm excited to announce that Cogeco will also be airing our weekly show. A huge thank you goes out to Francois at Livestream Junkies for coming up with the concept for the show and for volunteering to help produce it. And also thank you to the Chamber, BIA, and CFDC for helping to make the show possible. And a special thanks to Jan Javok and Hillary Thompson for volunteering to host the show. Next up, we have our local business survey. As the COVID-19 pandemic evolves, the needs of the business community will continue to change. A survey will be developed and distributed to determine the immediate needs of the local business community. The data will be used to develop programs that address the immediate needs of the businesses. We did something similar in early 2020, but I think it goes without saying that the needs of the businesses have changed quite a bit over the past year. So we're looking to do our second survey in the coming weeks. Next slide, please. So next up, we have our co-op ad share program. So as I mentioned earlier, we partnered with the NG Times, Moose FM, and Kempville Advance to offer local businesses discounted advertising rates. The program ran from July to December 2020, and over 30 businesses took advantage of the available funding. We will look to offer a similar program in 2020, as the businesses will need the support as they continue to deal with the negative impacts of COVID-19. We budgeted $10,000 to be allocated to this program in 2021. So next up, we have our Love NG marketing campaign. In 2020, we hired Alphabet Creative to assist with the implementation of the Love NG marketing campaign, which ran from November 6th to December 22nd, 2020. I've included a detailed campaign report that includes a breakdown of the media spend, creative files, website stats, and overall return on investment. The campaign data confirms that the Love NG marketing campaign created over 188,000 impressions and drove over 3,000 people to the Love NG site. We will look to build off the momentum that we created from the campaign and use the creative files to continue to promote shopping local in North Grenville. We have budgeted $10,000 to be used for the shop local marketing in 2021. As I mentioned earlier, COVID-19 is a moving target, and I'm anticipating that this plan will change several times throughout 2021. Staff will keep council and the public updated as we continue to develop programs to support the local business community. Before I wrap up, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our key partners, including the BIA, Chamber of Commerce, Grenville CFTC, North Grenville Business Builders, and the Small Business Center. It's special to see all these organizations working together to support the local businesses. So again, thank you for all that you do, and we look forward to working with you in 2021. That concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Matt, very much. Obviously, the health of our local economy has been a primary preoccupation of this council, and it's great to get that comprehensive report on where the activities produce some results and where you think there's significant value moving forward. So I'll go to Councillor Barkley first and see where we end up. Thank you, Councillor Barkley.
Thank you, Matt. It's a very detailed report, and it's nice to see all that positive response we've had to those programs. The question I have is, you mentioned that from the 2020 budget, $88,000 has been able to be used to fund the 2021 business support programs. And what you've laid out for us here today is $52,000 worth of programming. I'm wondering, are there any plans for the remaining 36,000, or are we just going to use that as the situation evolves to be a little bit more flexible? Or maybe I misunderstood where the funding is coming from or what we have available.
Yes.
Perhaps you can clarify, Mr. Gilmer.
Yes, of course, and thank you for the question, Councillor Barkley. So yes, to your point, we do have a significant amount of money left over. I shouldn't say significant, but we do have, as you mentioned, $34,000 left over. And you're right, that was just to as the COVID-19 pandemic continues, I think we're going to need to. I know everyone's sick of hearing the word pivot, but I think we're going to need to pivot along with the business community. And so the business support group thought it'd be important to make sure to leave a little bit of budget on the table so that as the businesses continue to fight COVID-19, that we do have a little bit of money to continue to support them throughout 2021.
It's great to see how the business community has come together and work with the municipality. As you know, the situation always wasn't quite as collegial. So it's great to see that cooperation between the different groups, and thanks for your leadership and the leadership of Hillary in herding those cats together. I know it's a difficult job, but obviously it's borne fruit. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Barkley. Any other comments in regards to the strategy? Mr. Gilmer, is there one thing that you think was particularly impactful about the programs? I mean, you've outlined their value, but is there anything that stays with you in terms of, you know, the considerable efforts of the municipality, and rightly so, when it came to these unprecedented times? Is there one thing that you would highlight for us as sort of being, you know, essential to the effort?
My gosh, yeah, difficult to choose just one. I think first and foremost, it would be the business grant program that we implemented.
Yeah.
So as you will recall, this was implemented very early on in the COVID-19 pandemic. So I know Mr. Dyke and council was pushing hard for us to make sure that we got some support out there early on when there wasn't anything available from either the province or the federal government. So I think, you know, us getting out there and getting the funding approved and partnering with Granville CFTC to offer businesses this small grant opportunity. And even though it was only $1,000, I think it still went a long way in helping these business communities, or sorry, businesses in the business community. And then I think secondly, it would be the Digital Service Squad program, and that's the one-on-one training that businesses can receive. So I'm encouraging businesses, if they haven't already, to please reach out to our office here or individually to the Digital Service Squad members to get that assistance that is available.
Good, thank you. It's interesting to hear those reflections. Okay, so council colleagues, I've got a recommendation here, and Councillor Barkley, you did speak up, so perhaps I can ask you to move the motion that we approve the recommended 2021 COVID business support programs, and as well as approve the allocation of 54,000 rather of the COVID-19 response reserve for the development of business support programs outlined in this report. And, you know, as I was briefly in touch with Minister Clark today, and there's no doubt that the provincial government and this municipality, among so many others, wants to ensure the local business economy stays open. Obviously, COVID numbers here in North Grenville and Leeds and Grenville have been quite low, but I think it's very prudent for us to continue our support for the local business community, because you can't see what's coming around the corner, and there is a recovery period for many of these businesses. So hopeful that our efforts will resonate and our value moving forward. Deputy Mayor, seconding and speaking?
Yes, sure.
Great.
Question, Matt. We're coming into spring pretty quickly here. We still have some shutdowns, of course, and probably some limitations on restaurants. The downtown patio thing, we changed some of the rules last year, or made it a little easier, faster. Are we still initiating that? Have we locked that in somehow? Do you know what I guess that's a planning question, or a building question, but I'm just wondering if you have some insight in that, or if you could just at least look into it for me. We should be ready for the springtime, when the restaurants will want to open up as much capacity as they can.
Yes, thank you for the question, and I'll certainly work with our planning department to make sure that we look into that and make sure that it happens for spring 2021.
Yep, the patio question is very much, I think, part of people's considerations as they look to the summer months with the reduced footprint, very likely to be still in play. So good question. Deputy Mayor, you'll second that motion then? Okay, good. I will just scan the room, seeing no other comments. I'll call the question then. All in favor, please. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gilmer, and we look forward to more of Kemptville. What is it called? North Grenville Live. No, North Grenville NG Loves Live. What is the name of it again?
Love NG Live.
Love NG Live. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very well.
Okay, so we've got nothing under finance, planning and development, public works. We've dealt with parks and rec. And under emergency and protective services, 7.1, the regulation of rideshare services was covered in our consent agenda. Informational reports were also covered under the consent agenda. Nothing new or exciting there, colleagues. We've just got a brief item to deal with under correspondence, and that's a request for a meeting time change, and Deputy Mayor and I are part of that committee and fully endorse the request for a meeting time change. Ms. Babcock-Cormier, is this an item that we can deal with this evening, or is it
Sorry, Your Worship. It's there for council's information that there's been a half an hour shift in the time for that committee.
Okay, no, a motion is not required then.
No.
Okay, perfect. And in terms of bylaws, I believe we've dealt with all the bylaws this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it looks like we're in a period for questions from the public and media. I see that we have both Paulina and Hillary here, and I don't see any other members of the public. Can you confirm, Ms. Babcock-Cormier, if you have other questions by email before I go to Hillary and Paulina?
Apologies, Your Worship. I've received no questions via email for tonight's meeting. There are no members of the public in attendance. There is Paulina and Hillary, as you identified.
Indeed. And I'm seeing a note from Paulina that there are no questions from her, and I'll go to Hillary. Hillary, is there anything you'd like to ask about this evening?
Sure, yeah, I have one question. In terms of the broadband study, is there a budget for that? Like, it sounds like you're going to be engaging a consultant or some other outside party. So I was just wondering if there was a number there.
I believe there is. I'm going to go back to, is Mr. Janu still on the line, or Mr. Dyke, can you take that?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks.
So we aren't including at this time an upset limit in the RFP that will be going out. We want to see what comes back from bidders.
Okay. That being said, can you, Ms. Janu, can you provide an approximation? Well, obviously, the sky is not the limit on the study.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at what other communities have gotten for similar projects, we're looking at probably around the $20,000 mark.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you said that that's going to be completed quite quickly. Like, you'll be able to get the RFP out and engage with consultant in the next few weeks or so?
Yeah, we're going to be posting the RFP tomorrow, and then we'll have it open for our 2-week standard. And then we've been talking to other communities that have had similar studies done. This can be done in a few weeks.
Okay, great. Perfect. That's it.
Thank you, Hillary. And I believe a lot of the data is technical in nature. So that's why I think the analysis won't take a long time. Some of that data already exists through Industry Canada, through our own tests. So it's really kind of taking a hard look at that data and figuring out what's the best path forward to resolve some of these more persistent internet challenges that people are encountering.
So will there be an evaluation of what areas of North Grenville are need more service and need our attention?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things we're looking for in the RFP process, is specifically to look at our geographic areas of need.
Okay, great.
Undoubtedly, when people approach council, that is part of their appeal is, how can we make it better in Burt's Rapids or parts of Oxford Station or any number of subdivisions or neighborhoods, Kempville Creek being among them, where people are beleaguered with, just poor internet. So
yeah, for sure.
And part of our task, I think, is to triage once we better understand landscape, technological innovations, and how to move forward together. So, the report will be fairly fundamental to council's future considerations when it comes to any kind of investment or partnership.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see Paulina has said she doesn't have any, and nothing else from the public. Is that right, Clerk?
Yes, that's correct, Your Worship.
Great. Okay. So then we are going to proceed to close the meeting, colleagues. And I'll look to Councillor Strachan and Councillor Barkley. Would you please move the confirmation bylaw? Thank you. I don't have the language in front of me, but we are just confirming proceeding this evening. Good. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And then a motion to adjourn. I know many of us have had a long day, so it's a treat to do it before 8 o'clock. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Strachan, motion to adjourn. Thank you. We are on the eve of birthdays, St. Patrick's Day, so wish everyone a safe and festive day tomorrow, should you choose to celebrate, and look forward to seeing you next week when we have our town hall on the future correctional facility. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Kiss me, I'm Irish. All right, you can issue that invitation to the community. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye.
Paula, can you stop recording, please, and stop the live stream?